Good afternoon and welcome back. I completely see everyone now so comfortable after lunch. Those gulab jamuns have already started working their way. And people who were sitting in the morning straight up like this are slowly going down. This is comforting, once you have all that dal chawal and gulab jamun to top it all. I know what happens, right? We all know that. So what do we do as AMA? We bring you a speaker which would make sure that you don't sleep. But before we do that, may I do a small request? People who are sitting at the back and trying to close their eyes in between to go in any kind of meditation, I request this is not the time. So kindly, why don't you take the front seats? Please, the lovely ladies at the back, please, my request. Thank you. And a couple of handsome gentlemen that I see there, thank you. If you can pick up the seats. The request, this side also goes the same way. पीछे की सीट पे बैठने का एक डर जो मुझे हमेशा रहता है कि we don't want to lose you, So अगर आपको लगता है कि थोड़ी देर बैठ के निकल जाएंगे, तो we don't want to do that. This is like taking a flight. You come in, then you go out only when we want you to go out. So now we want you to go out at 3:15. That's the time you'll go out and have a cup of tea. So please, I request the young girls here and the good-looking men, please kindly come in the front. It would be wonderful. Thank you so much for doing that. Great. So friends, once again, thank you so much for coming back on time and taking your place quickly. My name is Rama Mundra. I welcome you for the after lunch session today. And the speaker we have today is going to be very, very interesting for you to listen to, a different kind than what we have done since morning. I introduce Mr. Rajan Sinha, currently CEO of Mantrana Consulting Private Limited, certified life and leadership coach. 40 years of experience in line, staff and consulting positions in public, private sector, Indian corporates and MNCs. So think the amount of varied experience he comes from. An MBA, training and development diploma, and a qualified facilitator. Extensive consulting and training experience in India, Africa, and Middle East. Senior officer of Toastmaster International and advanced communicator. You already saw the book that he launched today, The Alchemy of Change, Managing Transition Through Value-Based Leadership with Dr. H.N. Arora. And right now, as if it is not enough, he's still pursuing his doctoral study in HR from Academy of HRD, making sure that learning never stops, and that's exactly what life is about. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together, Dr. Rajan Sinha.
Thank you and good afternoon. शुरू करने से पहले रॉ साहब जो हैं वो I have to find anybody in HR, yet to find anybody in HR who does not consider Dr. Rao to be a guru. So I call him Jagat Guru, at least of HR profession. So I will start my presentation with a Vandana to you. Experience की जो बात है, I'll mix Hindi and English both, because I have found in many audiences, if you are speaking in complete English, then there is a tendency to sleep more in the afternoon session. It may be unfounded belief, but that's one of the reasons which I also. So you talked about experience, especially backbenchers and other things. I went to one company. They said that you have to do the sales training. So Dr. Singh was involved. He told me, Dr. VP Singh, that you have to go. So I didn't. Normally, my elders, I don't ask them, question them, ki ye hai. So I was told on Saturday, and I had to go to the place, the other city, for training. Then I told the coordinator that this is the workbook which has to be duplicated. He said, this will be very difficult anyway you come. I said, this is a necessary thing, because otherwise how will I do the exercises and all. When I reached there, I found there were 1,200 people. Sales training, one day, 1,200 people. And people were so many, and I was not able to see people who were sitting at the back. So I told the coordinator, I said that at least brighten up the lights. He said, no, it cannot be brightened up because it's a yoga room. So, so half of the people I was not even able to see whether they were sleeping or they were there. I mean, I could only see some black hair or gray hair, that's all. So, it's not 4 decades which is important, it's these kinds of experiences which make us learn quite a lot. Okay, so we were talking about culture and values in lasting organizations. There is an organization which gives awards to companies all over the world, certain number of companies who, on the basis of authenticity and transparency. So it is interesting, and you know there are two companies in India also which are part of that list. So this is the Ethisphere organization. This is what his boss says. What do they look after? And they have been doing it for the last 12 years or so. Transparency and authenticity. Now, interesting part is that there are 2 organizations of India which have been getting rewarded year after year. Maybe these companies, as you have seen, thank you. World's most ethical companies. Now, there are many other companies which are world over, which are included in that. Some of them are listed here. I was surprised to see none of the new generation companies like Apple or Airbnb or Uber or those kinds of organizations. I don't know whether they were part of the study or not, but it was remarkable that no new gen companies were there. Is it because they are not yet so firmed up on their authenticity or transparency, or they were not part of the study, or they did not participate in the study? I don't know, but it was very interesting why it is so. Does it have something to do with the lasting companies kind of framework? And if it is so, then why these new generation companies are not there? Will they last? So that's one thought which came. I don't know, I don't have the answers for that. But let us see what are the values that they talk about. Pioneering, of course, because that is how they have gone all over the world. Integrity is very important, and they have suffered a lot. They have suffered a lot because of that. For example, they had to supply CNG buses to Delhi, and they set up a plant in Lucknow. The plant everything was okay, but they were not getting a clearance. So they met everybody, they went to the chief secretary. Chief secretary also said everything is fine with you, but sir, I cannot say. Maybe some politician was involved and he wanted money or something. So they were suffering penalties from Delhi government because their supplies were late, and there were consequences for that. Fortunately, at that point of time, this Singur transfer came. So they told UP government that, see, Singur has gone. If you do not give a clearance, then we may also go. So this is how they got the clearance. It has happened every time. There are hundreds of stories. But they have steadfast remained on that. No bribing, nothing. Whether they suffer or not. That's very clear. Interesting, integrity is a major consideration for that. At 810,000 crores company, 7 lakh employees, 150 years old company, Wipro. Again, unyielding integrity. You have thousands and thousands of examples. Unyielding integrity. So much so that we were just talking during tea break. They have a standard. If anybody is found to have committed some kind of corruption, the benchmark is in 15 minutes that person should be out of the company. 15 minutes. So, for example, they found that one of the vice presidents had bought ties for the company. In that process, he had made some money. Board member, though vice president, but board member. When this information came, again 15 minutes, he was out. Every time this has happened, unyielding integrity. Many of us think that integrity is something which is okay in books, but not in the modern business environment. We have a lot to learn from these companies. Every time. People found fudging on medical data, people found fudging on travel, anything. One word that you are out. Not only in private sector. HMT at one point of time was a great organization. I was fortunate to have worked for 9 years, 10 years there, and there was a story there. One supervisor, when he was coming out of the gate, there was some industrial salt in his pocket. CISF is controlling the gates, and it was found that salt was industrial salt. In any case, he could not have used for his own purpose. The value of that salt was 11 paisa at that point of time. Obviously, he had to go. No consideration, he had to go. You see, people remember culture through stories, not through manuals. So, if we want to build culture, catch stories, document them, record them. Every employee of HMT knew this happened. Did they read manuals, conduct discipline and appeal rules? No. Standing orders? No. But they know this story. So, culture is a set of stories, not documents, not hoardings, anything. It is just stories. Again, Wipro, 60,000 crores, 75 years. Just we are talking about some of the leading companies. But they are not the only one. Godrej. In fact, we were talking about patriotic capitalist. Nothing is bigger than that. When Adisher started, he started with high precision surgical instruments, and he wanted to sell. People told him, even in England and all, that it doesn't matter where you have manufactured, you have got to write made in Great Britain. He refused. The entire setup, India, there was not so much of a market. Whatever it came in India also, that came via Great Britain and other things. So he lost that business. Heavy cost, but he refused. And I will not do that. To me, made in India is important, whether I succeed or not. Patriotic capitalism. Dr. Vishal Gupta talked about that. So, Again, huge number of stories. Humility, respect. Respect is another very important thing. Again and again you will find lasting companies, they talk about respect. We will come to that. TVS. To elevate the standard of people. This company is one of the most fascinating companies. Before 1947, Madurai transport service used to be run by them, and before 1947, any passenger knew if they had to calibrate their watch, they had to calibrate with the arrival of the bus. So precision, you know, in transport anything can happen. Yet they ensured that. Unfortunately, they were nationalized after this thing. But it is still an example that precision, exact operation can be done very well by Indians, long time back. And it is, they have talked about those values, stick to their values, may not have grown like many others, but values are very critical for them. Jindal Group. There are many Jindals and all of them are cousins and all of them are very successful. DP Jindal, I mean there are many Jindal families and they are all cousins. Why am I talking about OP Jindal? Again, patriotic capitalist. After trading, when he got into manufacturing, he started off with making sockets for the tubes, pipes. Then he said, why these pipes have to come from Britain and other places? Why we can't make it? So he started making that. Then he said, if the steel is imported, why we can't make steel? So he started getting into steel. Then he said that sponge iron comes from abroad and Lurgi and all those people were making very costly. So he started, and they were not willing to transfer technology. He somehow developed his own technology. He set up his sponge iron plant, and now of course they are exporting to many countries. Respect. I am not so much focusing on the list of values because many a time values may not be actual values. Many organizations may have these values, but do they follow or not, may not. So I am talking about their personal experiences, what people said and what people they talk about. For example, OP Jindal always said respect and care. You respect but don't care, not good. You care but not respect, not good. Respect and care. That is one thing. Second thing, of course, they said that to their employees, if you have the ability, we will find a job for you. Not you alone, your families, your relatives, anybody. If they have the ability, rest assured, it is our job to find a job for them. Imagine the commitment they get from the employees. Even if the plant may be somewhere 1,000 kilometers or 2,000 kilometers away, any employee of OP Jindal Group, he can apply for employment of his ward or any near relative. He will be considered and given preference, provided qualification and all things are met. OP Jindal Group. Huge company now, 1,30,000 crores, operations in many countries. Hindustan Liver. Technically, it is not an Indian company, but in many ways it has become an Indian company. So, one thing is middle class soul. They say we are a company with middle class soul. Means what? We are conservative, we are cost conscious, we do not like to waste. If you read the stories of how their graduate engineer trainees, management trainees are used for so many things to do. For example, their ETA dairy plant was not working. They found, not working to the capacity. They found that cows were not giving sufficient milk. So management trainees were assigned the task of artificial insemination work in the neighborhood. And they will go, and everybody, they were not allowed to use air conditioned car, because the salesmen who go, they can't afford. So even if you are executive, you will not go in that area in air conditioned car. People don't know. Such amazing, inspiring stories are there. 20,000 employees, 80 years, 34,000 crores. Incidentally, they are a subsidiary of a foreign company, but they also think a lot in terms of nation. It is one of the values of that organization. How much can we contribute to the nation? So we have included Hindustan Liver also. Why we have included these companies? Because these are the companies who have made a difference in the lives of people around in the community. They are known. Some way or the other, people are impacted by these companies. ITC, for example, 110 years back, it was a British company, then it became an Indian company. It doesn't have typical ownership of a family. It is a professionally managed organization. Nation orientation, one of the values written, very strong. And how does it get reflected? For example, ITC Bhadrachalam was not doing very well. So when they wanted somebody to take charge, they assured said that gave it to Pradeep Dovale in 1999, when he handed over that to Pradeep Dovale. Deveshwar said that, Pradeep, I am giving the future of 2,000 families in your hands. You have to somehow manage it and make it better. He didn't talk about the losses. He didn't talk about the operations figures. He said 2,000 families' future. Now it is in your hands. This is value. So, give sustainable employment to 5 million people through e-Chopal. Very often we think of ITC as a cigarette company. Fortunately, it is cigarette company is but a small part of their operation now. Of course, very significant because it gives a lot of this thing. But that mindset is innovation, respect for people, trusteeship, customer focus, nation orientation. And they have gone into so many fields, you know. I don't have to talk about that. e-Chopal is 5 million people are getting employment through that. You can imagine 50 lakh. Imagine 50 lakh means at least 2.5 crores population of the country. It is being impacted by ITC. So, values. Reliance. When I talk of reliance, then people think of many things. Yeah, Mukesh Ambani bhai has grown, but what about Anil Ambani? What the values which were talked about by Dhiru bhai were not relevant in Anil bhai's group. They were, but this is not the only thing. For example, in a team, there is not one player which makes a difference. Even in Anil bhai Ambani's company, they lost because of many other things. But Sasan was one of the superpower plants which was set up by Anil Ambani. Dhiru bhai's value, it has to be best in the world. It was. They set up colony for workers and officers 11 kilometers away from the plant. I said, why? It doesn't make sense every day carrying so many people. So they said, no. Anil bhai said, thermal power plant generates a lot of pollutants. I don't want my families to suffer. Imagine the permanent cost the company was willing to bear, but employee interest. They didn't succeed, it's a different story. Since we are talking about it, just give you a hint how did it fail. 4,000 megawatt plant. They promised to sell power at the rate of 1 rupee 39 paise per unit, which also included duties to be paid to the government. Government increased the duty by 3 times. So they said, since you have increased the duty, at least raise this 139. Government said, no, we can't. Why? Because if we do it for you, even if you are correct, you are right, everybody will say, Ambani isko favor kar diya. So you go and fight it out till Supreme Court. If you get the clearance, you can get it. But we will not give you. They were not able to manage. Dhirubhai had the capability of managing government, which Anil did not have. Brilliant plant. In efficiency, in adoption of modern technology and everything, in the whole of Asia, there is no plant equivalent to that, even now. But they lost it, and now of course it has been sold. So that's a separate story. But when we talk about Reliance Group, what did Dhirubhai say? Dhirubhai say that it has to be world class, no matter what you do. That's one. Second thing is, in 1999, when they were wanting to go for telecom, they said, how much should be the cost of a call? Dhirubhai said, postcard. An average person, a villager, knows the cost of 10 paisa postcard. The cost of a call should be such that it should be in that range. And from there onward, they started working backwards and then did all the calculations, and that's the one of the things. He also, fortunately, Dr. Arora was with him, and he spent about 10 years or so with them. Dhirubhai had stayed in Chal for about 8 years with his entire family, and therefore he was very conscious of the workers' need. And he said that they have to be treated with respect because they treated me with respect when I was in Chal. That's one thing. Second thing, he said that no matter what happens, employees' trust must not be broken. We will operate from the foundation of trust. So do whatever you want to do, but be mindful that trust should not be broken. Trust is the first operating principle. Now, we don't think of trust as we know that it is there, but somehow it gets lost. For example, there was an Omanis group, a very big group, Al Hassan Group. In 2005, they called me, they said that please do a program for us. I said, okay. So chairman said that you do a program on trust. I was surprised. I said, humko India mein to nobody talks about that. They have a leadership program, they have a goal setting program, they have a team building program, communication skills, all that. Nobody has asked me to do a program on trust. The chairman said one very simple thing. He said, see, if trust is there, leadership is there, team building is there, everything is there. But if the trust is there, not there, there is nothing. So, program on trust, a strong value. There were very interesting stories in that experience. One of the, maybe a side issue, but I feel the urge of telling. When I went there, the car came and I sat at the back seat. I didn't know that it was a crime. My host, he saw and he shouted, he said, what are you doing? I said, what happened? He said, you can't sit at the back of the car. You have to sit alongside driver. because it is an insult. Now, in India, we are not used to these things. But I saw there that even the chairman would sit in the front car. Not only that, the driver would not come to open the door for chairman. Chairman would go to the driver's side, shake hands with the driver, come back and sit alongside. Respect. And he gave a justification. He also, of course, he talked about what Quran says about trust, respect and other things. But very fascinating how trust is the basic fulcrum. We all know. But how many companies in India, even after so many years, talk about programs on trust? We talk about all things, but not trust. And we know that trust is the basis of not only companies, trust is the basis of every damn human relationship, even husband and wife. But that is the we talked about why did we talk about these stories? Because if you see, there is a continuity of the basic framework of every successful and a lasting company. A lasting company means there is a it can be subjective. For example, when Build to Last, Jim Collins wrote, he took up companies which were founded before 1950. But he also said that if you want to do a similar study elsewhere, take 50 years. That should mean that it is a sufficient time. If the company has survived for 50 years, you can say it is a lasting company. So, he talked about that. The profit is important, but they are not the point of life, but without them there is no life. Why is it important? For a good number of decades in India, capitalists were considered to be bad people. In fact, I don't know how many of you are from West Bengal. The intelligentsia there, they were so much against that, against capitalism. There are hundreds of stories of what Jyoti Basu told people, how.
One coffee house.
Yeah.
was only on Augusta.
He told, Jyoti Basu told senior industrialist, see, you are a capitalist, don't expect anything from me. The Aditya Birla had to run away. He had to run away from that place naked. All his clothes were taken off. He ran, and he ran for his life. And he came to Bombay and set up and everything. Everybody knows Aditya Birla is a big thing. Loss. J Engineering Birla Company. Things became so bad that suddenly the truck driver caught hold of all the office papers from his office and came non-stop to Delhi. There is a story of that Olympic marathon runner who at the end of the run he fainted, and exactly the same thing happened with that driver. Of course, that driver was also given a share by Birlaji for in recognition of that. So that hatred for capitalism is the main cause of West Bengal, what happened. Unfortunately, today also things are not great. They are better than, much better than before. But this aversion to profit and aversion to industry, it is somehow a part of Indian, to some extent, not so much now, but traditional Indian mindset, that capitalists are thieves. Though they are the wealth creators, they are the job creators, everybody knows. But that mindset somehow has held us back for a long time. Result of that leftist and all that. I don't want to get into politics so much, but we do want to emphasize that the respect for wealth creation is a necessary condition for the growth of any nation, any society. So, when we talk about Birla, actually Birla companies I have not taken in this study because it has become so widespread that calculating the entire Birla Group turnover was a challenge. But see the values. When I have talked about that in my book also, Madan Mohan Malviya wanted to set up Banaras Hindu University. He went to Birlaji for grant. So he was sitting in the front chamber, Birlaji was inside. He was shouting at his son for lighting a candle. He had wasted 3 matchsticks. And Birlaji was shouting at his son, "This is the way you operate. You can't light it up with 1 stick." So Madan Mohan Malviya ji was very shocked and he quietly came out. He said, "This conjuice fellow, what, what can I expect from him? How will he give me money?" So he came out and he went out. Fortunately, in between, Birlaji remembered that there was somebody waiting for him. So he asked the person to call. He said, "Sir, he has left." So he said, "Catch him." So he was brought back. Madan Mohan Malviya was brought back, and then he said that I am setting up this university and I want the money. So Birlaji said, "How much money you want?" Oh, they wanted 50,000. He immediately wrote a check and gave it. 50,000 at that point of time was a huge money. So Malviya ji asked Birlaji, "If you don't mind, I will express myself. I was sitting outside and I went out because you were shouting at your son for wasting 3 matchsticks." He said, I have no right to waste, no matter how rich I become. My sons also must understand there is no scope for wastage. Cost consciousness. What does it mean? 3 matchsticks. But value. Birlaji was told there was a lakh, lakh ki factory lagani hai. So Birlaji, he was told that it is a very profitable enterprise and I want to set up. Somebody told कि लाख बनाने में वो कीड़े मरते हैं. Birlaji ने कहा, "No, then I will not do it." Any industry whose foundation is based on killing other beings, I am not a party to it. So, but I have not talked about Birla Group because Birla Group itself is so huge and diverse. It was difficult to get a consolidated data for them. So, this was a very pioneering study of Build to Last. I have talked about that, and I saw what did he talk about, what were the features of lasting companies. First he said genius of and. Genius of and means what? Many companies talk about either this or that, either profit or social responsibility. All these companies which are great companies, they don't talk about or, they talk about and. How can we have profit also and this also? How can we have research and innovation and stability? Everything and. So that and is the first and foremost things. Big, hairy, audacious goals. Was this not audacious that the cost of a call should be equivalent to a postcard? India now has the cheapest data in the whole world, and the credit goes to Reliance. Reliance Com may not have succeeded, but they changed the country and perhaps changed the world, because many other companies have taken example of India in setting data prices. So, audacious goals. Cult-like culture. What does cult-like culture mean? We'll talk about that later. Normally, cult is taken to be in a negative sense, but cultish is negative. Cult-like is not negative. Childish is negative. Childlike is not negative. So cult, what is cult-like? We will talk about that. We are not talking about build to last, because in any case you must have read or you can have access and other things, but some salient features. They are not organizations which are focused from the very beginning. For example, Motorola was in battery repair. So thousands of examples you have of great companies, and they did not have a clear direction. They tried a lot of stuff and saw what works. American Express, for example, they were in logistics, but they were also in travel and financial sector. Logistics business was taken over by the government. So they realized that we are also in this finance. So they came with the travel plus finance, and they became a very successful company. They try a lot of stuff, but they keep to the values are very clear. What are the values? We will talk about that. Homegrown management. They generally employ insiders. In very rare cases, go for outside talent. So, and good is never good enough. That's an excellent point of view. Now, what is cult-like culture? One very funny example of cult-like culture I had in 1981 or so in NDDB. It was very scary though. Everybody you met in NDDB started from exactly the same words. In 1965, Lal Bahadur Shastri came and he told this and blah, blah, blah. After 10 minutes or 10 seconds, you meet another person, he will start from the same. In 1965, and it's a cult. It was so scary that, I mean, there are so many things. I don't want to talk about negative things. They are a great organization, but that cultism is very strong. Fervently held ideology that this is what we do and this is our purpose. Indoctrination in terms of training, extensive training, tightness of fit. I talked about Wipro, that eject like a virus. If a person you may be carrying anything, but anybody who does not fit, you can't afford to keep him, because it will spread like a virus. So you have to quickly get rid of it. And elitism, sense of belonging to something special. For example, Tata Group employee. Even 20 years, 30 years later, he will proudly say, I am ex-Tata. So that elitism is there. Again, these are the features of lasting companies. The core ideology, see this, Disney. That is the purpose, core purpose, values, purpose, very clear. So they keep inventing. As long as they are not stuck with a product, they keep inventing. But the core, they have to make people happy. So their caste is, for example, all their employees are not talked about in terms of employees. It's a orchestra caste. People are there. I mean, I don't want to get into details, but you know that. If you want, you just see which are the roles in Disney organization. It's very funny. It looks like a music company, the way conductor and all those kinds of things. Now here, cultural awareness is very important. And here we come in, because in everywhere we want organizations to sustain or organizations to change, the cultural background is very important. Why are we suddenly talking about change in terms of lasting companies? because here again the concept is of and, stability and change. Because for being stable, you have to keep changing as well. So, just like a treadmill. So, this is culture is the basic thing. And then just an example of how there are cultural differences, and there are very stark cultural differences between an, for example, contrast of Indian and American society. And how much time do I have? 10 minutes. Okay. So, for example, one of the researchers said that people who believe in one God, have very strong spiritual values, are happier, healthier, in most cases more intellectually involved people, more than people who don't. Now, this is a Western construct. May be true there, but is it true here also? May not. So, that is why it has to be seen in the context of culture. We are conditioned to believe because most of the education we got through British system. So, majority of people feel that Indian values are not as good as Western values, especially in the context of culture or education. For example, all of us have read Western books, whether it is Cotter or Kotler or Cantor, or you take any name. Great literature, very profound insights, but at the same time it has to be put in the context, and that context is very necessary. The new century belongs to us, just as the new century belongs to women. In 1980, Tom Peters had said that by 2000, he talked about 2030 or 40, I don't remember the exact year. He said majority of chief executives worldwide will be women. It is inevitable. In 1980, he has said. We are seeing the signs of that now. Why? Because the qualities which are typically feminine, like compassion and care and all those kinds of things, are getting dominance. The physical strength is not so important these days. So, that feminine, so-called feminine values in Hofstede terminology, they are coming to center stage. And naturally, as more of them come to center stage, the new century will be belonging more to women than to men. I am not saying that, Tom Peters has said this. And similarly, the next century belongs to Eastern thought, even if we do not talk about Indian ethos. So, that is the, for example, owner and business interest is not the first priority for Indian leadership. They talk about employees, they talk about care, and not so much. Western leadership, first priority. So, for example, open forum management is not effective in Asian context. Many organizations have very successfully done town hall and other things, nothing against that. But they are, if you see comparatively, it is not as successful in Asian context because inherent hesitation. It is not that people do not have questions, but when you finish your session and immediately people ask any questions, then people take some time to open up. So, that open forum town hall is not as effective in Asian context as in Western context. It is not because they have a huge number of thoughts coming and they do want to ask, but many of us in public forum, if they are not used to, they hesitate in asking. So, Indian values, book has talked about Indian values, and these are the values which are taught in Gita chapter 16. We won't get into details, but this is what is getting prominence. It will get more and more prominence. Like it or not, it is inevitable. Just as a century of women is inevitable, a century of Indian or Eastern thought is inevitable. We have talked about the Indian model in our book. And again, I repeat at the risk of repetition, not essentially Indian model. It is Eastern model, in the sense that when you go to Japan, when you go to Thailand, you find similar values. And the sustainability is one of the prime concerns. We have explained and we have debated on many issues. I am not getting into that, how the vision is created and how, what are the key values of Indian management. These are the, and of course, different parts of how that vision has to be translated into different parts. Incidentally, when we talk about empowered structure and empowerment, I can't resist myself from giving one example in empowerment. Many times people think that empowerment means giving power. It is not giving power. It is letting the other person feel that he or she is powerful. That's a fundamental difference. You can't delegate power. And there is a very interesting example of Ramayana when Lakshman had fainted and everybody was crying, Ram was crying, Nal, Neel, Jamwant, Hanuman, everybody was crying. Suddenly Jamwant asked Hanuman, why are you crying? You alone have the power to fly in the night and get it, that Sanjeevani booty. So initially Hanuman was doubtful, can I? Because it happens. Jamwant didn't tell Hanuman that no, you are authorized to fly by economy class or whatever. It's not authority. It is making the other person feel that he or she has the power. Empowerment is that. And obviously Hanuman got excited, and instead of, in excitement people do extra, so instead of finding that this thing, he said, yeah, le jayenge, wo baad mein wo kahenge nahi ye wali thi, let me take the entire thing. Doctor will find out what is it. Empowerment is that. And how do we empower people? That we have talked about. This is the summary of the model that we have proposed. Why did we talk about Eastern thought? When we gave example of Oman, Eastern thought, trust. So, seek divine blessings. When Dr. Arora started that massive change in escorts group, initially do a puja, because somehow that gives the amount of, some perception of sacredness about the change effort. That is completely Asian concept. So, this is what it is. Now we will just take 2-3 minutes. That debate about lasting organizations will become more and more acute as the things change, and initial heroes used to last for decades. Now heroes don't even last for 1 year. Heroines don't even last for 1 year. Organizations don't last for so many years. How do we think about lasting organizations when the change has become so fast that today it is there and tomorrow it is not there? And what will be the underlying thing that will still remain even in the midst of all change? What we talk about, why I have shown this, one gentleman I have talked about in my book is talking about orbital change. The whole industries are changing in a complete shift of orbit. For example, hotels, Airbnb. For example, Uber. The complete orbital shift is taking place. Now, how do we, what holds in this kind of change? I'll just like you to see this.
The future. Are you excited or are you worried? Because the next 20 years will bring more change
Can
than
anybody
the previous
increase the
300
sound?
years. Technology is rebooting the very idea of work. How we work, when we work, where we work, and sooner or later, why we work.
Sound चली गई.
Thinking. Science fiction is becoming science fact, and the end of routine work is only one of the outcomes. So how much of your work is routine? You know, the searching, invoicing, filing, organizing, checking, updating, monitoring. Need I go on? Rest assured, anything that can be automated, digitized, or virtualized will be. This is as certain as music is in the cloud, cars are driving themselves, and money is going digital. Automation is reducing the need for road and manual labor everywhere. And smart machines will soon do the knowledge work as well. Blue collar, white collar, whatever color your work is, it is going to be disrupted. Over the next 15 years, every technological limitation will virtually vanish. Imagine virtually unlimited processing power, global access to real-time data, machines that can move around like we do, quantum leaps in battery technology, and then even faster breakthroughs in artificial intelligence and deep learning. Clearly, competing with such powerful machines on their turf has no future. Working like a robot has no future. Learning like a robot has no future. It's a recipe for permanent unemployment. When artificial intelligence meets human intelligence, it's the end of routine as we know it. But take heart. This is not the end of our jobs, it's not the end of our work, it's not the end of our purpose. Rather, a new age of human-only work is beginning. Let's be honest, few of us enjoy menial work and boring routines, even if we may like the security that comes with jobs like this. You know, increased automation is a certainty in all industries, but very few jobs are 100% automatable, 100% routine. Humans can easily deal with unforeseen events, complex challenges requiring judgment, intuition, and improvisation. Whatever is easy for a computer is hard for humans, and vice versa. This will be true for the foreseeable future. Yes, there is a life beyond automation, but only if we are prepared and if we work together. Only if governments start to plan for the kind of education and training we need, and provided we can have a serious conversation about if and how we should tax automation, and what a universal basic income may look like. Now imagine a world, maybe 2030, where we only work 3 to 4 hours a day, but for the same money, because our machines are taking care of the routines. Picture a world where the cost of energy, water, food, healthcare is dramatically lower because technology has brought abundance. See yourself in a future where work is no longer the same as purpose, where we can get purpose from what we can and what we are meant to do, not what we have to do to make a living. What if education actually helped us to discover how we can thrive as humans, not as better robots? What if routine work was replaced by the adventure of vocational careers? What if learning were actually lifelong and full of reinvention? So how will we get ready for this future? Leave your chores to the software and the bots. Focus on those purely human things that are our future. Move up the food chain to become indispensable in this hyper-connected world. Rediscover those talents and traits that make you unique. As Oscar Wilde once said, be yourself, everyone else is taken. Become comfortable with being uncomfortable, warm up to the discomfort of permanent evolution. This is the new normal. We're entering a constant state of VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. But you can meet volatility with velocity. You can fight uncertainty with unorthodoxy. You can answer complexity with creativity, and you can defeat ambiguity with awesomeness. Don't perfect your dying routines, and don't let your kids even get started with learning them. Downloading information to a hard drive is a dead end. Instead, train them in understanding, intuition, imagination, foresight, storytelling, and empathy. Strong skills in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics will be essential, but achieving excellence in humanity, ethics, creativity, imagination will become equally decisive. The more we digitize our world, the more human we can and we must become. The future works differently, but that might be the best thing that ever happened to us.
Thank you.
Come on in.
Okay.
Hello. All right, Ahmedabad, our time to prove that we like the speaker and the session. Thank you, Rajan sir. It was amazing. And when you were mentioning about the way Disney has put up designations thing, as recently in Goa, and the Hotel W has their theme, anything, anywhere. And they write a beautiful quote with that. As long as it is legally permissible, we are available for you. So we'll get you anything, whether it is legally permissible. Goa, I'm sure especially you need to put that. So there was a person, and I told them that I'd write their story in DNA. I'm a columnist for them. So I was talking to a person and said, I would like to know a little more about it. So they got the GM, they got assistant GM, everyone to talk to me. But the person who showed me around, and he gave me his card. And the designation says W Insider. I said, what kind of designation is this? Insider. I have never heard a designation called Insider. He said, anything you want to ask, it's my job to tell you. So you want to know where is go and guess best bibinka in Goa, it's my job to tell you. If you want to know where would you get the second heated swimming pool in the hotel, it's my job to tell you. I'm the insider. And they own this up with so much of pride. So I think that's exactly where value-based organizations also know things. So when he said that, okay, what does a new hire tells? We make people happy. And I think that's exactly, when we take away from this session, we also look at something that, what is our calling? The first thing Dr. Malay Mahadevia said in the morning, what is my calling in a career? And I have always gone with this back and say, what is my calling in the career? I think I'm adding up one more today. What am I adding as a value? Even if I'm an individual or a small firm, what am I adding to value? What do we do to make people happy, wiser, learned, whatever? So on to that, TV Rao sir.
Rajan, I think it's a wonderful talk, very good. I think you are given. I was actually, last night, I was struggling to, I downloaded some videos from YouTube on culture. And as I went to the YouTube, most of these are Western examples, including culture in Apple and so on. So I was just wondering, then I typed culture of successful Indian companies. Couldn't find a single one. and I have to go name by name, Infosys, then altogether different kind of things. I'm so happy you have listed at least about 15 to 20 companies, and I think I agree with almost every one of the companies which talk of such a diversity in terms of the culture, everyone focusing on something which is unique to them. And particularly, I think your point, this profit is bad. I think profit and I always perceived a successful corporation is by itself a good example of CSR. Like what you said, capitalism with patriotism, a patriotic capitalism, I think is a very interesting term that you have coined. So I think there is no other CSR than whatever the products and services any corporate sector offers to the community. Corporate sector itself is CSR if it lives by the values and culture, and that is what in a way, if you look at Jio has demonstrated. I don't know how much of profit they make. I don't think they are yet a profit making. I was just listening to Ambani and Nadella talking last night. I think they had an interview on the very day when the US President was visiting India. They were having very interesting kind of a conversation about what kind of a revolution this entire telecom industry has gotten, where everyone can walk with this in mind. To me, I think that is the CSR. If a auto rickshaw wala, if a dhobi, if a farmer who sells tomatoes has a cell phone with a throwaway price and has access to global markets and things of that kind, I think that is the best of the CSRs one can have. And the companies you have talked about, I think are certainly personification of this. And you have also highlighted, you can't forget the profit part of it. Similar to, I think, what Vishal mentioned about in his design, task is the first one. Task means delivering results. Relationship is the second one. Authenticity, and then a whole lot of things. I think all these models today are integrating the human values with the business. Business is for human beings. I think this is the most important thing. And therefore, I think business is finding a new meaning in business itself. So that is a very wonderful thing that you have talked about. You talked less about your book. I think more about, I assume some of these things are written in your book, but I think there is a lot more in the book, particularly more in the nature of a case study. And I enjoyed when I read the book, the chapter on Gita, Bhagavad Gita, and I started thinking, as you are mentioning, your last little bit of the picture that you had shown, as I was watching that little film, I started imagining. I don't know how many of you have visited IIM library recently. If you visit IIM library, you can sit, you can stand, and then they have a software with which you can go to any section that you want, you can pick up a book that you want, it's all there. Virtual, it's all virtual. So I was imagining that if I have that facility, technology has developed to such a level that I have not visited beyond a dozen countries. I want to visit every single country in the world. Now I am 73 and I want to visit in the next 2 years. So I think technology will make it possible. Sit in my house and all that I knew is to have a virtual tour of the White House and feel every pillar, every nook and corner of any either Eiffel Tower or White House or anywhere you go, you can feel of it. I think it is possible through technology. Then the question comes, if in a year's time I can visit the whole world and do all that I can do, that is technology makes it possible, what am I going to do the rest of the life? That's where the answer Gita will provide. Bhagavad Gita will provide answer to say that your true potential, your true life, true meaning is elsewhere. I think technology, is always an aid. It is not an end. And I think the biggest thing that we can find is whatever I think our scriptures or whatever I think the books and other things have been able to give. So I'm very confident of that particular thing. Thanks a lot for pointing this out, and wonderful listening to you, and all the best for disseminating this message across the world. Thank you very much, friends. I think we'll break for tea. and get back in 15 minutes time. So this is a shorter break because we would like to close by 5 o'clock. Shorter break, have a quick tea and come back to listen to the stories of value-driven HR managers.